Best known for his 10-year stint in the group Faith No More, Jim Martin would be the group's guitarist from 1983 to late 1993. Faith No More would break up in 1998 and reform in 2009, but strangely enough, Martin wasn't part of the reunion. Why did he leave the group in the first place, and what happened to him afterwards? Well, one of the answers will likely surprise you, and that's what we're going to discuss in today's video. Immediately recognizable due to his red-trimmed glasses, his bushy beard, and long hair, Jim Martin was born in the Bay Area and spent the early part of his musical career playing in a band called Vicious Hatred, which also happened to feature future Metallica bassist Cliff Burton. By 1982, drummer Mike Bordin, keyboardist Roddy Bottum, and bassist Billy Gould would form Faith No More, which was named after a greyhound the bandmates said they bet on. MTV would report that Cliff Burton urged Martin to audition for the group, and taking his advice, he did and got the gig. In their early years, the group struggled to find a vocalist, instead playing gigs using an open mic policy, whereby they invited a member of the audience to front the band each night. Not exactly a winning strategy to make it in the music business, but one frequent attendee of the band's early shows was singer Chuck Mosley, who performed with the band several times, and soon enough, he became the group's frontman. Mosley's time with the group would last about half a decade, seeing the group put out 2 albums, 1985's We Care A Lot and 1987's Introduce Yourself. However, Mosley's volatile behavior and internal conflicts led the group to fire him before the end of the decade. By early 1989, having assembled a majority of the music for their third record, The Real Thing, the band would soon hold auditions for a replacement singer, eventually finding Mike Patton. Patton at the time was playing in his outfit Mr. Bungle, and within a week of joining Faith No More, he'd complete the lyrics for their third record, The Real Thing. The Real Thing would be the group's commercial breakthrough, producing 2 hits in Epic and Falling to Pieces, and the album soon went platinum in America, selling over 1 million copies. The band would follow that up with 1992's Angel Dust, a record that would be guitarist Jim Martin's last with the group. The album would sell about half as many copies as its predecessor, Going Gold, and marked a change in sound. Despite that, in the years after its release, the album has been hailed as one of the most important records of the 90s. Angel Dust was the first album where Mike Patton had a bigger influence on the music, and rumors soon swirled in the music mags that Martin clashed with his bandmates about the title of the record, musical direction, and things reportedly got so bad that some of Martin's guitar parts were stripped from the record. At least that was the rumor for a long time. The band would be interviewed by Kerrang! Magazine in 1992 during the making of the record, and when Martin was asked whether Angel Dust was an enjoyable experience, he'd respond, "Absolutely not. It's been very unpleasant, but not really much different to my experiences in making records with Faith No More. It's very difficult to say it all in a short amount of time. There are certain things that certain people worry about at certain times, and certain other people choose to play upon it to increase the tension of a given situation until everything's way out of hand." Angel Dust would only have 1 song written by Martin, and he wouldn't even attend rehearsals or meetings with the rest of the group, opting to have the band send him tapes that he could add his guitar parts to later on. In all honesty, it wasn't really too different from how Faith No More recorded their previous records. Angel Dust would be released in June of 1992. If you read a lot of the rock publications who spent time with the band on the road in early to mid 1993, you can see a lot of them writing about the internal tensions between Martin and the rest of the band. Kerrang! Magazine would write in their February 1993 issue about Faith No More, while vocalist Mike Patton was taking an increasingly strong grip on the band's lyrical and musical direction, guitarist and metal icon Big Jim Martin was becoming increasingly isolated from his bandmates. Angel Dust survived, but will the rigors of long-term touring and the pressures of preparing for their next LP be the straws that break the camel's back? No one will admit to having the hump. In the same issue, they would write, Martin appeared disconnected from the rest of the band. It seemed he didn't know how they felt. There was no camaraderie in the workplace. Fast forward to Kerrang's July 1993 issue, where they would document more tensions between the band and the guitarist, writing, "There's an obvious polarization on stage between Patton, Gould, Bottum, and Jim Martin. The tension is deliciously painful, visible from all points of the show, impossible to ignore. At one point, Patton, with his back to the crowd, picks up a bottle of water and hurls it over the head in the direction of Martin. It misses by only a couple of feet." Fast forward now to early 1994, and Kerrang! Magazine would break the news that Jim Martin is officially out of the band. The band would issue a press release that the split happened in late November of 1993, and at the time of the split, the band would admit they had been working on new material for their upcoming LP, but they weren't happy with how progress was going. Gould would tell Kerrang, "We have definitely parted company. I think anybody who's read the music press over the past year, even 2 years, shouldn't be too surprised with what's happened. The situation just came to a point where it was impossible to work together, and we wish Jim all the luck in the world with whatever he does. We don't plan on working with him anytime soon." Kerrang would then ask the members whether they think their sound would suffer as a result of Martin leaving the group. As the members themselves admitted in earlier interviews, Martin was the most macho guy in the group. Gould would, however, tell the publication, "Musically, I think the only thing that will change is that we'll get better." As for Martin, he would work on new music, forming the group The Behemoth, and would put out a new album in 1997 that did in fact contain a cover of the Faith No More track Surprise You're Dead. Faith No More would have several replacements for Martin in their subsequent years, putting out 2 more albums, including 1995's King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, and 1997's Album of the Year. But the band called it quits in 1998. Martin, for his part, would tour with the group Fang from 1998 to 2000 as their guitarist. It was following the 90s Martin would get married and have kids, relocating to the Castro Valley in California, and also venture into non-musical projects, getting into property management and hobbies including growing peas and pumpkins, according to the East Bay Times. He would enter numerous pumpkin growing competitions, winning one of them in 2005 when he grew a 1,087-pound pumpkin. As to why he chose to grow peas, he would tell the East Bay Times, "I love peas. I stand out here and eat them. They never make it up to the house." In 2015, Martin would clarify his non-musical projects, telling My Global Mind, "I grew some extreme pumpkins for competition, and it was not a farming operation. It was a gardening experiment." He would eventually be ranked to be one of the top 5 best giant pumpkin growers in America. In 2009, it was announced that Faith No More would be reuniting, but Martin would not be taking part. Roddy Bottum would talk to Noisy, stating, "We totally reached out to him. I was of the mind that of course we would not do it without Jim. There's no way. I think we all felt pretty strongly about that initially. Well, some of us maybe more strongly than others. Jim was a real contentious person in the band, but I loved him." Bottom would go on to state that he thought Martin may be still angry about his split from the band, and that led him to saying no to joining the reunion. However, in 2012, Martin broke his silence about Faith No More, talking to a UK fan site, where he discussed topics ranging from Angel Dust to the reunion, telling fans about the Angel Dust sessions. "My publicized not being into Angel Dust was all about the way the process went down. There was a lot of weird pressures to follow up the real thing, and as a consequence, the album Angel Dust was more contrived musically than I thought was necessary. I wanted more of the record to happen in the studio, and Bill wanted every last track nailed down before we went in. I wanted to spend time with it. Management and the record company wanted to rush it out the door. There were a bunch of journalists in the studio. We were paying for a bunch of sampling that we could have created. Matt Wallace was calling me on the phone complaining about Mike Patton's performance. Management and the record company were calling me complaining about Mike Patton's performance and desire for outside projects. The record company president came into the studio and said, 'I hope nobody bought houses.' All the air got sucked out of the room. That was one of the great moments when reality slaps you in the face. Some of my associates had bought houses. The pressure was on. Of course I was unhappy. Individuals were making decisions which proved to be damaging to Faith No More." Martin would elaborate that his guitar parts were not erased from the album and no studio sessions were brought in. In addition to that, Martin would also take aim at longtime Faith No More producer Matt Wallace, who in past interviews minimized Martin's role on the group's albums, adding, "Matt also forgot to mention that he and I spent a lot of time together on the production of The Real Thing and Angel Dust, improving the recording method and sonic profile in the studio. I insisted on the co-producer credit for Faith No More on those 2 records because of that work. Notice The Real Thing and Angel Dust are the only 2 Faith No More records co-produced by Matt Wallace and Faith No More." In addition to those topics, Martin also addressed the elephant in the room, the reunion. He clarified that in 2008 he heard rumblings that Faith No More would be playing festivals in Europe the following year. Martin would state that he was interested in participating in the reunion and asked for the paperwork to be sent his way so he could sign. But then he was abruptly told by management that the band would be using someone else to fulfill the guitar duties. In 2011, Martin would join Metallica to perform Tuesday's Gone on stage as part of the group's 30th anniversary shows. Then in 2013, he joined Infectious Grooves at Metallica's Orion Festival and joined the group the following year at the Whiskey A Go-Go, who celebrated their 50th anniversary. As to what else he's up to these days, he's been pretty tight-lipped about that and hasn't done a lot of interviews. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like button and subscribe. We'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.